Over the last few years, Apple has massively improved their iPads, and you no longer have to have the most expensive, newest version of the iPad to have an excellent tool for creating art. In this video, we're going to talk about what I look for when purchasing a new iPad and rank which used iPads are worth investing in. If this is the first time you're seeing a video from me, my name is Brooke Glazer. I'm a professional illustrator and a top teacher on Skillshare. It's been 3 years since I made a video on which iPad I recommend, and a lot has changed, so here we are. Apple makes 4 different types of iPads. They make the iPad minis, the regular iPad, iPad Air, and the iPad Pro. Now, there are models in each of these different types of iPad that make excellent drawing tools. And in fact, of the 26 or so iPads that Apple has made, 15 of them are going to give you a really good drawing experience. Now, there are some caveats to that, and we will discuss those in this video. But any of these iPads are going to be really decent choices for drawing on. The main thing to note here is that all of these models are Apple Pencil compatible. We're not even going to talk about any iPad that is not Apple compatible in this video, because it's the difference between trying to paint with a carrot and trying to draw with a fine tip mechanical pencil. The experiences are just not even comparable. So naturally, you may be wondering, do you need the Apple Pencil, or can you get away with another stylus? And I wish that I could tell you that any old stylus will do, but really truly the Apple Pencil is essential to the iPad experience. And Procreate, the most popular app for art making, is designed to work with the Apple Pencil. Now, the Apple Pencil isn't cheap. Depending on what version you need to get, it can be between $100 and $130. So if you need to wait to save up money to buy that Apple Pencil, I would recommend waiting to save up for it, or at least budgeting it in and making that a factor in which iPad that you choose to get. It's important to note that there are 2 versions of the Apple Pencil. There is the first generation and the second generation. And when you do buy an iPad, you do need to buy the Apple Pencil that is compatible with that iPad. You can't buy the newest iPad and then get the first generation Apple Pencil. They won't work together, unfortunately. I know, it's dumb. Now, if it's just absolutely not an option for you, there are other styluses that you can use. The main thing that you want to look for is a stylus that has pressure sensitivity and tilt sensitivity. But either way, whichever kind of stylus you end up getting, you still need to get an iPad that is Apple Pencil compatible. Okay, so that still leaves us with a lot of iPads to choose from. Before we can rank which iPads are best, there are a couple of different factors that we'll want to talk about. What physical size of iPad should you get? Now, there's no right answer to this. It really does depend on your personal preferences. The iPad minis are the smallest of all of the iPads, and then you move up into the iPad regulars, which are a little bit of a medium size. And then the iPad Air, depending on what version you get, is a little bit bigger. And the biggest version that you can get are the iPad Pros. Now, the iPad Pros have a bunch of different variations in size, depending on what year and version you get. Now, if you are a professional illustrator, using this as a daily drawing device, you are probably going to want the biggest screen that you can afford. Ideally, this is going to be a 12.9 iPad Pro. But if you are just getting started with digital art, or if you do art only as a hobby, you probably don't need to have the biggest screen available. In the research I did for this video, some folks that I talked to found the 12.9 to be too big and clunky for them. And to be fair, the 12.9 Pro is not something that I can just toss into my purse. I have to bring a bigger bag whenever I want to take it out. But most professional artists that I've spoken to would never go smaller than the 12.9 unless they had to. Now, I did a poll on my Instagram for folks who had an iPad smaller than the 12.9 and asked if they loved their tiny screens or if they wished that they had bigger. 53% of people said that they loved their tiny screens, and 47% wished that they had bigger. So I wouldn't just automatically jump to a smaller screen size just because it's a cheaper version of the iPad. I think that the 11-inch iPad Pro is a nice compromise, but if it's out of your budget, the iPad Air 4 is nearly the same size. Now, The minis are incredibly compact, very easy to slip into a purse. Personally, when I tried out the iPad mini, it's super cute, it's super compact. I can totally see the appeal. But if I were to be using it every single day, it would be far, far too small for me to use. The folks I spoke to who owned minis said that they loved their iPads. They loved how small they were, but they also said that they would upgrade to a larger screen if they had the budget to. So I use a laptop for work, and anytime that I have access to like a really large monitor, it blows my mind how much easier it is to work on a big monitor and how much more productive I am. But it doesn't matter to me because the ability to travel with my laptop is more important to me than having the biggest screen that I can possibly get. You know what is most important for you. You know what is going to work best for you. And if you're unsure, if you have the chance to go to an Apple store and physically try out the different models, I would absolutely make the trip. Even if you're planning to buy your iPad secondhand, getting your hands on the iPad and seeing how they feel at those different sizes really is, there's nothing that compares. The next thing to consider is how much storage do you need? Personally, in over 5 years of using an iPad, I've used about 141 gigabytes of storage. Now, I don't store videos or photos on my iPad. If I did, I might have blown through a lot more storage. But I also haven't deleted much of my art. So I probably could have gotten away with less storage if I was removing art from my iPad. Now, each model of the iPad comes with a different amount of storage available. So for the earlier versions of the regular iPad, you'll either get 32 gigabytes of storage or 128. I would be really surprised if you could get away with 32 gigabytes of storage. Now remember, your iPad should last you a long time. I didn't upgrade my iPad for 5 years and I didn't need to. But if I had run out of storage, it would have made it a lot more painful. Now with the iPad Air, I'd also say that 64 gigabytes of storage is kind of pushing it. It'll probably work, but you may need to be backing up your files somewhere, often so that you can free up space on your iPad. But realistically, 256 gigabytes might also be overkill. Now, if you're going for one of the 2021 iPads, they are getting really powerful and they do some serious work. So depending on what kind of work you want to do on those, and if it's more than just art that you want to, you might want to invest in more storage. But again, if you are just doing art, you most likely won't need 2 terabytes of storage. Okay, now we're on to the most important question. How big of a canvas or how many layers am I going to get while drawing on my iPad? If you're new to digital art, the Procreate app limits the size of your canvas so that the app runs smoothly and it doesn't crash. That means in some iPads, you will not be able to get as many layers as you can in other iPads. The amount of developer accessible RAM is what determines how many layers that you will be able to get in Procreate. Now, RAM is not something that you purchase in addition to your iPad. So like when you buy the iPad, you can get, that 128 gigabytes of storage or that 1 terabyte of storage. RAM is not something that you get to choose. The model of iPad that you buy, it comes with that amount of RAM, no matter how much storage you get, with one exception, which we will get to. But as a general rule, you don't have to worry about getting more or less storage. So let's say that you want to print a piece of wall art. How many layers will you get in Procreate? With a 16-inch by 16-inch canvas at 300 dpi in Procreate, here's how many layers you will get in each iPad. And by the way, a big thank you to everyone on Instagram who helped me pull this all together. So with the minis, you're going to get 7 layers. That's really not bad. And with the regular iPads, you're also going to get 7 layers until you get back to that 2018 6th generation iPad. That's when you're going to only get 4 layers. Now with the 2020 iPad Air, you actually get 19 layers, which is starting to compete with some of the iPad Pros, which makes this iPad very compelling. This is a really good iPad for a good value. Now in the Pros, that 2016 9.7-inch iPad Pro, it is really a bummer. Only 4 layers. If you're going to invest in a used iPad Pro, don't get this one. The iPad Pros are generally really excellent, but not this one. This one should not have been called an iPad Pro. But that 12.9 2015 gen and any size in the 2017, they all get 19 layers. Now we get into the 2018 iPad Pros. So remember when I said that buying a certain amount of storage doesn't matter? This is the exception to that rule. The 2018 iPad Pro model was built with 2 different amounts of RAM, and how much RAM you got depended on how much storage you bought. This isn't true of most iPads, but it is true of the 2018 model and the 2021 iPad Pros. The model with 64, 256, or 512 gigabytes, that would get you 4 gigabytes of RAM. And if you bought the model with 1 terabyte of storage, you would get the 6 gigabytes of RAM. Now, at the time in 2018, it didn't matter because that extra RAM wasn't something that Procreate could access. So you still got the same amount of layers no matter which model you purchased. But with the release of iOS 15, Apple now allows third-party apps like Procreate to request access to more RAM. So because of that new software update, Procreate was able to access more RAM and pass that on to users like me and you as extra layers. Okay, so back to that chart. As of today, if you got a 2018 model under 1 terabyte of storage, you can get 19 layers. And if you get one with 1 terabyte of storage, you can get 25 layers, which puts it at the same level as the 2020 iPad Pros, which also get 25 layers. And then we get into the 2021 iPad Pros, where we are going to see a massive jump in quality. These 2021 iPad Pros have a fancy new M1 chip and way more developer accessible RAM than in any iPad we've ever seen. So if you get a model that has 512 gigabytes of storage or under, those iPads have 8 gigabytes of RAM. And the iPads with 1 or 2 terabytes, they get 16 gigabytes of RAM. So what does that mean practically? That means those iPads that you get the 512 and under, they get 41 layers. And the iPads that have the 1 or 2 terabytes, they get a shocking 77 layers with that canvas. These 2 iPads blow all of the other iPads out of the water. By the way, if you have those iPad models and you're wondering, hey, I don't get that many layers, you, my friend, are in for a treat. You just need to upgrade to iOS 15 and then you'll get that boost in layers. But you also do not need to have that many layers to make amazing art. For the last 6 years, every artist who uses Procreate has been making their art with less layers. I had my 2015 iPad Pro until the last couple of months, and I only recently upgraded to the 2021 model. And I didn't need to. I just felt compelled as part of my job that I should be keeping up with the latest technology in order to pass on this good info to you. But frankly, I absolutely could still be using my 2015 iPad Pro. It still works really, really well. I also used to create art with even bigger canvases than the measurements that we had right up here. And I regularly created art using 6 layers. It was a little challenging, but it was possible. And my friend and fellow Skillshare top teacher, Carla Alcazar, uses the 2018 regular iPad. Remember, that's the model that tops you out at only 4 layers in 16 inches by 16 inches. And she makes incredible art on the iPad. My point is, yes, the newest iPad tools are amazing, but they are also as expensive as some laptops. You can absolutely make professional quality work in some of these cheaper, older models. For me, the best iPad comes down to how many layers I'll have access to. Yes, Pros are the most powerful of the iPads. In general, they have slightly better cameras, slightly better screens, they have higher refresh rates, which means that videos and animations play a little bit better on them. But honestly, none of this makes a huge difference to the drawing experience. And the drawing experience is what's most important to me in an iPad. The 12.9-inch 2021 iPad Pros do have one feature that does improve the drawing experience, and that is the screen gets about 25% brighter. And if you've ever wanted to work on your screens outdoors in the sun, you know that's a little bit of a fantasy. It's hard to see your screens, and the brightness does make a little bit of a difference. In general, while an iPad should last you a good long time, the newer model that you can afford to buy, the longer it's going to last you. And keep in mind that batteries also age over time too. The older the device is, if it's been used, the more of its battery life has also been used up. So let's rank these puppies. So coming in first place for me, the 2021 5th generation iPad Pro with 1 terabyte of more storage is top of the line. This is the best iPad for art that you can get by a long shot. And it is expensive. And it might be way more than you need. When I checked, it is currently priced at $1,799. Number 2 on my list is the 2021 iPad Pro 5th generation with 512 gigabytes of storage or less. And this is the next best iPad that you can get. And it's also potentially $700 cheaper than the best iPad on my list. You will massively increase the amount of layers you get with this iPad, and it is powerful. A 128 gigabyte is currently priced at $1,099. Number 3 on my list is the 2020 iPad Pro 4th generation. Any size, any storage. Or the 2018 iPad Pro with 1 terabyte of storage. You're going to get a handful more layers than you would on the iPads that rank lower on this list. I found the 2020 iPad Pro refurbished on the Apple site for $749 and the 2018 1 terabyte model for $1,049. But you may be able to find a better deal with a third-party reseller. Number 4 on my list is actually a tie. So I've got the 2020 iPad Air, the 2018 Pro, 2017 Pro, and 2015 Pro. Now these all get the same amount of layers in Procreate. At this point, you're going to want to balance out your need for a larger amount of storage, a larger screen, and your budget. I'd love to list the prices for you, but they are all over the place because there are so many different sizes and storage options between all of those iPads. Now, the iPad Pros are more powerful iPads. They've got slightly better screens, they've got better GPUs and processors and techie stuff like that, but they are older than the iPad Air. Like I mentioned, I had the 2015 iPad Pro, and while I could still be using it, and in fact my partner still has it, 6 years is a long time for any Apple device. It is a matter of time before that iPad does get phased out. So in theory, the iPad Air might last you longer. Next, we have 6 iPads which also get the same amount of layers in Procreate. That's the 2019 iPad Air, the 2021 and 2019 minis, and in the regular iPads, we've got the 2021, 2020, and 2019. I talked to a bunch of folks who used the regular version of the iPad, and they were all very happy with their iPads. Sure, if they could upgrade to a larger screen or something that got more layers, they would, but they were in general very happy with their iPads. Some of them got the cheaper regular version of the iPad because they were new to digital art and they didn't know if they would like it. And some of them later went on to become professional artists and they stuck with that same iPad. These iPads may not be at the top of the line of the iPads, but they are more than adequate, especially if you have a tighter budget. If I had to rank these, it would be the 2021 iPad regular, the 2020 iPad regular, 2019 iPad Air, 2019 iPad regular, and the 2021 iPad mini, and then the 2019 iPad mini. And actually, if I'm being honest here, the 2021 iPad mini is actually a really good iPad. I just think that it's going to be a smaller screen than what most people are going to want. Truthfully, that particular iPad has some really good upgrades to it, and it probably could rank up there with the 2021 regular iPad. Okay, number 6 at the bottom of the rankings, we've got 2 iPads, and that is the 2016 iPad Pro 9.7 screen and the 2018 6th gen regular iPad. Both of these iPads get 4 layers at that larger canvas size that we compared everything to. Everyone who I spoke to that had the 2018 regular iPad loved it. And everyone I spoke to who had that 9.7 iPad Pro hated it. And my guess is that's probably because the folks who could afford the iPad Pro when it came out expected more of their investment. And it has not stood up to the test of time. While the folks who purchased the 2018 regular iPad, they probably bought it because it was the most affordable model for them to get at the time, and it exceeded their expectations. Both of these iPads are getting older in the years, and they aren't as good as the other iPads. But honestly, they will both get the job done. And if I had to rank them, I'd probably recommend the regular iPad over the iPad Pro in this case. I would love to hear what you think is important to consider when buying an iPad, new or used. I inevitably will need to update this video, so I will definitely make sure to include those things in my next one. If you are new to digital art, I've got some very popular classes that might be helpful for you on Skillshare, namely Intro to Procreate. And you can use the link in the description if you'd like to get a free month trial to Skillshare. While researching this video, I also did a lot of research asking people what accessories they used, cases, keyboards, screen protectors, stuff like that. If you are interested in a video on that, let me know in the comments below. If enough people are interested, I will make a video on that. I hope this video was helpful for you. Thank you so much for watching, and happy creating.